everybody, welcome back to Lockbox Lunatics. We had a great week last week with our guest appearance by Rick DeLuca. So we'll kind of touch a little quick overview on that. But this is Steve Lambert coming at you from Kennewick, Washington, along with my buddy and co-host down there in Arizona, Chad Kamp. How are you doing, Chad?
Good morning, sir. How are you doing? Doing well?
I am doing very, very well. We had a weekly meeting today with our brokerage. I felt good. Everybody's happy. We had a great meeting. It was awesome. How about you?
Nice. Perfect. No, having a good day. Got a little bit, a few errands to run this afternoon. I met with one of my agents this morning talking about some coming up with a marketing plan for himself. So,
Nice, nice.
yeah.
What kind of errands are you going to run?
Well, let's see. So I have a 3:30 listing appointment and I've got to get out to two new listings. Two other listings that I just took this week. So I need to see their condition to make sure that they're ready to hit the market or not. One of them, the owner's out of state, and the
Oh,
other,
okay.
yeah, the other is actually a rental listing. So I just probably should lay eyes on it before I start marketing it to know what the details of it are.
Not a bad idea. I have to run some errands. They're not that exciting. I have to drop my boots off to get new heels put on the back because the
Oh,
rubber
okay.
vulcanized because I always wear them to mow the lawn. And now when I went to walk on concrete, I almost wiped out because it was like ice.
Oh,
So that was
wow.
interesting. And then I have to go to Home Depot and pick up some posts because I have to put some signs up in some of front of a couple commercial listings. And so I have to get the big treated posts and I got to dig some holes and stuff. So that's what I will be
So that's
doing
exciting.
this
You don't
weekend.
have a guy for that?
I do, but the dude's so far out that it's just easier for me just to go do it. You know what I mean? I can
Oh,
just make
okay.
it happen. So it's way, way easier if I do it.
And,
Make it
and you
faster.
always have a post hole digger and shovel and duct tape and tarp in the back of your car all the time. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
because I have to wrap everything up to keep it so there's no dirt in my car after I'm done. Use a little bit of rope for that.
Right. I got you. I
That's
got
right.
you.
It's Fair Week up here in Benton County,
Oh,
Washington.
okay.
So I will be Saturday. I will be attending the rodeo.
Okay, so what's your favorite event?
Oh man, love the barrel racing. I don't know
Okay.
why. I think that's just super fun because they're just ripping, dude. I think that's cool. And then of course I always like the bull riding, right? I mean, who doesn't?
Oh yeah.
Like that's I mean, it's always the showcase event. Went
Right.
to a rodeo, went to Montana, outside of Whitefish a couple years ago, rode the train from here to Montana. We made it a full like let's make this like a Western adventure. So instead of driving or flying, we took the train, took Amtrak, went overnight, got dropped off right there. It was super fun. And we went to a rodeo there in Montana, and they told us, they told us at the store. We said went to a Western shop there, and I said, hey, we're visiting town. Where can we see a good rodeo? And she goes, oh, this is a place that everybody goes to. She goes, doesn't look like much when you pull up out front. The bar's super small, but you should see the back. And so we
Oh,
pulled up to the front, little teeny bar. The back, oh my gosh, this huge arena back there. There was about 7,500 people, and this happens weekly.
wow.
Yes, I was blown away. They said get there a couple hours. I'm like, a couple hours early. What are you talking about? Oh, we got there an hour and a half early. We had to park so far away. There were cars, there were buses. It was insane.
So it's the only show in town then.
I guess so.
It's like, it's interesting fact here in Arizona, we have two rodeos that compete against each other. So we've got the Prescott Rodeo and the Payson Rodeo. And the Payson Rodeo, their claim is they're the longest continuous running rodeo in the country.
Wow. Okay.
And then Prescott's contention is they're the oldest rodeo in the country. Okay. So apparently Prescott started a rodeo and then it faltered and missed a couple years and then it came back where Payson started and had never faltered and never
I
missed a
just haven't skipped a beat.
haven't skipped a beat. Yeah. And which is interesting because it was just last weekend. It's always the third weekend of August is when the Payson rodeo is. And then the Prescott rodeo is always 4th of July.
Interesting. So which one, since you live down there, so which one is perceived as the better rodeo?
Oh, you know what? That's like asking somebody, do you like the Dallas Cowboys or the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yes. Which one do you
Right.
like out of
Which
those
one
two?
do you like? So it's going to be preferential. So if you have folks that are Prescottonians,
Hmm.
it's obviously the Prescott Rodeo.
Oh
If
yeah,
you
100%.
have someone from Payson, it's the Payson Rodeo. I'm what the Payson people call a flatlander, which I'm really not. But since I live down in the valley, they call us the flatlanders, right?
Yeah.
Um,
You guys are the ones that get on the curvy roads in the mountains and you drive really slow and you drive us up the wall because we live in, mountain area, so every road's curvy. But anyways.
I'll just say this, Steve. You follow behind me, see if you can keep up.
I've been in the car with you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I know.
So
You're very expeditious from point A to B. I appreciate that.
yes.
So which one is it though? And I have a point to all this.
Okay. Well, personally I prefer the Payson Rodeo.
That's what I was hoping you were gonna say.
That's what I prefer. The Prescott Rodeo, I've been to, and I just prefer the Payson one.
And the reason I was hoping you would say Payson Rodeo is because the Prescott's the oldest rodeo around. So we're going to equate this to our industry really quick here. I'm going to take a
Yeah.
little side street on you. So you know those agents, they've been in the business for a really long time, right? And they expect business just to come to them because they've been in it for a long time. And so they don't
Right.
really try or do anything. They just show up here and there. But the Payson rodeo, not as old as the Prescott one, but it's better. It seems like it's maybe a little more well known, more received. What have they been doing? They've been consistent because they've been showing up every single year.
Right.
So
That's
you can have
true.
an
Yeah.
agent that's a newer agent or an older agent that's been around, tenured agent, and consistency wins. Interesting, isn't it? No matter what industry you're in, consistency wins. And there we go. The rodeo, consistency wins.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
consistency is the key. That's
That
that's
was just a little live litmus test right there. We didn't talk about this beforehand. This was
no,
great.
we didn't, not at all. Actually, so
That
wow,
was
go ahead.
like a little petri dish live going on. Just see what happened.
Yep, yep.
Luckily, it went the right way. Phew, that
It
was
did.
close.
Otherwise, we'd still be floundering over here, right?
Yeah, I'd be like, okay, well,
Like,
blew
what
that
about the
theory out of the
rodeo?
water. Don't be consistent. Just show up every now and then, see what happens.
Just claim that you've been doing it the longest, even though you haven't,
Yeah,
been
exactly.
consistent at all. You know, right. And that's one of the things, tying that back into Rick, kind of what you were saying is, to last week's episode, we had a guest star, yeah, guest star, but a guest on there, Rick DeLuca, and his message was pretty, just make sure that you're consistent, make sure that you show up, and make sure that the activities that you're doing are, from a agent perspective, make sure that you're doing activities that are going to continue to put you in front of your database and your clients and the consumers so that they know that you're a professional, that you're in the business, you're a student of the market. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things the agents, we always talk about the next shiny object. People get distracted by that. And that's
Yes.
something that we need to be mindful of. So I've got a side note as well. So, you've been to my house, and so we live on almost an acre, and
Yep.
I've got some chickens and a chicken coop, and one thing that we battle all the time is rodents. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
so we get, it's been a couple months since we've seen any. Well, we noticed a rodent in the last week or two, so I set a trap out. Well, we also have squirrels that like to run around.
Uh-oh.
So it's a live trap. And so, we set it up. And so for the last, 2 to 3 days, we've caught the same squirrel, right? And it's an interesting concept that he keeps falling into the same trap.
It is, right?
And he expects a different outcome each time. Every morning I got to go out and let him out because the dogs are over there going crazy because he got caught. But as agents, we've fallen in the same trap as well, right?
So true. No, I
And
love
and that trap is not being consistent.
it. Yep.
Chasing some shiny object, what the squirrel was doing, and getting caught inside of continuing to chase that.
Dude, I
Uh,
love that because real life outside of what we do for work, just watching things like that happen. There's nature just happening, right? And it's a lot of times people say these things are cliche, but they're cliche for a reason because they're true, right? They're accurate. And I love that because here's this squirrel that this didn't exist before. Oh, well, I got to go in there. There's free stuff in there, right? This is going to fix all my issues. I've got food and everything else, and but I keep getting stuck, right? And so how long is it before that squirrel, because I'd be curious to see if this actually does work. At some point, will the squirrel just give up on that and go back to what it was doing, or will it just keep doing it and getting stuck, right? Because you see people do this a lot of times. They come to us maybe a year, they have a great bang up year or something, doing something the right way, having really good success, and then all of a sudden they change everything, make a whole wholesale turn or add a lot to their plate, maybe more than they can handle, and then they're coming in our office at year 2 or 3 going, man, I don't know what's going on. I feel stuck. And we hear that. I hear that exact thing all the time. I feel stuck. I feel trapped. I don't like, I keep doing the same thing. I just don't know how to get out of where I'm at. I don't know how to get unstuck. I'm in the mud, you know?
Right.
And it's going back so many times to, well, what got you here? What did you start with, right? And just going back to your basics, you know? And so I'd be
Yep. And
curious to see if the
I
school
was just
does
gonna
that.
say that. I was just gonna say that, we both of us played sports, right?
Yep.
And whenever you have a slump, what is a coach always telling you to do?
Oh yeah.
Get back to the basics, right?
Yes.
And so, if you can test these other things out. You and I have done this in the past, and currently we're doing that right now.
Hmm.
You test things out. As long as you continue with the basics, by all means, you can test things and see what they're going to work for you. Make sure that you don't forget the basics. Continue to do your basics so that
Oh yeah.
foundation is sitting there, and that you don't lose any ground by trying something new.
Oh yeah, exactly. I was reading this morning, I like to read a lot of different things, and I was reading about this agent in Utah, and she's second year in business and she's crushing it. And she's getting 75% of her clients off of TikTok
Mhm.
and Instagram. And it was interesting. I'm always fascinated by this kind of stuff because she's doing something that's different than everybody else. And that's kind of the cool part about it is that here's the backstory. She was married, went through divorce a couple years ago. She worked at, I think, University of Utah or something like that. Kind of didn't like the job and the flexibility and just different things. Got into real estate. She realized she had to do things differently. And she's like, well, what am I good at? Well, she kind of like has a good sense of humor and she likes to do things differently. So her videos literally are insulting people,
Yeah.
and it's hilarious. They're just dying. We showed them at our sales meeting today. Just get people some creative juices, get the
Right.
juices flowing about like some ideas and thinking outside the box. And it's hilarious. She carries the microphone cord. She doesn't even try and be super trick about it. It's like she's doing all these things super tongue in cheek, right? And she's like, I think this one video, she's like, this master bedroom is so big you could die in here and people wouldn't find you for weeks, kind of thing. And then she just lays flat on the floor, and it cuts to another shot, and it's just super dry and just straight to the point. But I can see why she's blowing it up because she's doing that's kind of novel and unique, right? But when you think about it, it's all about connecting, right? She's connecting with people, and they're like, I want to use her. I want to. Like, I get this person. They have a good sense of humor, and I think
Right.
it's important that in our business that we get to that point where we understand that the world doesn't revolve around us, the sun doesn't spin around us, and that things. And I think that that feeling of being approachable but genuine, and also making sure that we're offering value in that same realm, right? And how do you do that? And what does that look like, right? We did hit a little bit of that with Rick last week. And I think you and I've
Right.
kind of talked about this before about kind of being your authentic self. And I sometimes hate using that because I feel like it may get overused a little bit, but it's kind of true. Um, which is whatever your sphere is, do that. And I know you were doing some training today and talking about how you're going to market that your agent specifically, like what is their sphere? Where do they want to be? How can they influence things, and how can they develop that? So kind of tying into that, what was some of the things that you try to hit on when you're with your agents when you first come in and you're trying to get them dialed into where they want to market? Like with this particular person today that you were working with, when you look at that, kind of what kind of direction or I guess exercises, things like that, do you have them do or go through in order to help dial in their marketing?
Yeah. So from that perspective, first off, I find out what they're into, what they like doing,
Nice.
who they're hanging out with. So I've seen those videos of that agent that you're referencing, and she's hilarious.
Yeah.
And honestly, unfortunately I have that caliber, or that type of sense of humor. I'm just not comfortable sharing that with everybody.
Right. Yeah.
So there's
Same,
because
same. Yeah.
so I reel myself in, but I tell my agents all the time, just be yourself. The sooner that you can become yourself, and not pretend like you're the constant professional 24/7, the more you're going to be able to relate to folks. So with this gentleman in here today, with my agent today, he loves to play basketball, right? So I've given him
Oh, that's
ideas
awesome.
on
Yeah.
how to reach out to those that he's playing basketball with, how to develop a community around that. Okay. Because I think folks think that whenever, and I fell into this trap too. I think you're so worried about getting so hyper focused on a market that you're going to be missing out.
Yeah.
That's not the case. The more focus you get in on a market, the more you're going to dominate that market, or that specific client base. People are just going to gravitate to you because of that. you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So he loves basketball. I've got another agent that does, oh, what's it called? Um, where he goes to fight like he's in the 1600s.
Oh yeah, like the medieval time things,
Yeah,
right? Like
medieval times. I forget
yeah,
what, there's a
yeah,
specific name for it, and I just can't think of it. But it's the Renaissance, the Renaissance type things. And so, and he was very meek and mild about sharing that with me. Look, dude, just dive into it, man. That's your
yeah.
world. That's what you love to do. If we were all the same and we weren't different, we would have no need for one another, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
just if you remember back in the 80s and the 90s, and I don't know when we got away from this, but it was always be yourself, celebrate the differences.
You say the 80s or the 90s?
The 80s or 90s. I don't remember when that was. Yeah, there you go. That's more like the 50s, but okay. But
Or you be a pirate. I'm just saying,
I
go any of those
but
things.
but if you remember back in the day, it was celebrate the differences.
Hmm.
Now I'm getting now unless you fall into what everyone into your boxes, you know,
Yeah.
and so the society has kind of lent that way. But realistically, the fact of the matter is celebrate your differences. It's okay to be a little different. Um, and just understand that that's going to show your uniqueness.
100%. 100%. It's funny because we touched upon this in our meeting today. We talked about how it was something that Rick brought up last week that like no matter agents in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the 10s and the 20s, and where we are now, right? It's been we always struggle with a lot of the same things, and yet
Oh
so
yeah.
much has changed, right? Technology's changed, everything's changed within our industry, and we talked today about a little bit about AI because AI is a big thing. And I was telling the agents, I was like, you need to really lean into this and learn how to use it beyond just using it to like formulate an email, for instance.
Right.
Because if that's all you're doing in 3 to 5 years, you're going to get left in the dust because so many agents are actually leaning in really hard and learning how to utilize AI to do so much more for them. And so the cool part about what I love about that is how you were talking about celebrating differences and the things about that is that you can take AI, for
Oh
instance,
yeah.
that agent you were working with today can take AI and figure out take that idea of saying I'm within the community I play a ton of basketball. I love doing that. And I love that it's something they love to do and that's where you help like told them to lean into, right? Because that's where they're going to be authentic. That's where people are going to see them as who they are truly because they're relaxed and having fun and they're having a good time and people get to know them. And that's a great opportunity because those are people that have a shared interest that are going to want to do business with somebody that has a shared interest, right? And they get a chance to know that person and to see how that person reacts like when they're stressed out or when they're just having fun or or when they're tired or when whatever. They get good exposure to them to kind of see how they could work together. And so your agent could go jump into AI even and sit there and say like give me a marketing plan and lay out how I can hit up different basketball leagues or whatever. I mean I love that kind of stuff. And so like you said, people have to be open to changing, but also open to like how they can operate in certain environments.
Right. Yeah, and that was part of the discussion today was okay, how can we reach out and start that engagement and that dialogue with your database and those that know you extremely well, those that, only are, not close friends, but are just acquaintances, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what the agents, fear is how am I going to come across when I
Mm,
talk to somebody about real estate? And that's a legitimate fear. I don't think the consumer understands what our job as an agent entails. And a lot of that is finding business, right? So the
mm,
consumer typically, if they got a 9 to 5 job, they have to go out and find a job once and they can sit there for 30 years,
yep.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
every single day, you've said this before, we wake up unemployed. Every single day, we have to go find business.
Yeah.
And so for the consumers and the public to sit there and say, well, all they do is unlock doors. Well, that's after we found a client.
It's a lot of work to get to somebody to be
Yeah.
able to unlock that door for somebody, right? To have somebody standing there to unlock the door for took a lot of work to get to that point, like a ton of work. And people don't realize that the
Yeah.
back end hours, like you said, where where you do it, you do a lot of work, right? And it's unseen. And if you're
Yeah.
really good at this, you make it look easy. People are like, oh, it's easy. And you're like, well, I take that as a compliment. If I can make it look easy and be successful, that then I've
Right.
gotten really adept at what I'm doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Case in
interesting.
point is we've got a deal closing Monday.
Okay.
And we had an issue that came up with the other agent. The owner doesn't even know about it. Because I knew we were going to get it resolved. It wasn't going to impact them at all.
Yep.
And so, the issue was over an HOA addendum. The other agent, the opposing agent, we were talking about lazy agents. The other agent never filled out the HOA addendum on the front end to say who was going to pay for what.
Oh gosh.
When we issued the counter offer, I sent the HOA addendum over. I filled it out, said my seller's not paying for this, the buyer is. And basically my mindset is if your agent is so lazy not to fill this out asking for anything, I'm going to
Yeah.
presume that you're going to pay for it, right? And so
Right.
I sent that over, and we followed up for 2 weeks trying to get that HOA addendum back. And finally, I had called her on it several times. And finally, she's like, you know what? I didn't see the HOA addendum loaded up in the MLS, so that's why I didn't include it. I said, okay, let's presume that you didn't see that, and that happens, right?
Sure.
Send it over with the counter offer, number one. Number two, you forwarded that unsigned HOA addendum over to the title company, acknowledging that you had it and acknowledging, that that's what you wanted the title to open up with,
Right.
right? And so, and just in strategizing this, I knew, honestly, in my opinion, I'm like, hey, look, if push comes to shove, I'm not going to let this kill the deal. If I've got to eat the transfer fee and if I've got to eat the
Sure.
capitalization
Yeah.
fee, I'll eat it on behalf of my seller, and then I'll deal with the other agent by the methods that you and I both know we have available to us through our local associations to recoup that. So, but the consumer doesn't understand a lot of these conversations and a lot of these issues, these housekeeping issues that happen behind the scenes that they're not
Right.
privy to. Well, the reason they're not privy to it is our job is to make this transfer of the house as seamless as possible and
Yep.
as smooth as possible. There's always going to be a hiccup, there's always going to be a hurdle, right? And it's extremely important that you have an agent that knows how to deal with that and knows
Absolutely.
how to identify this is an issue that I need to get the seller and or buyer involved with, or this is an issue I know how to deal with, and it doesn't need to impact them whatsoever. They've got enough stress on their hands. I don't need to be adding to it because I know it's going to get dealt
Exactly.
with without harming them.
Well, like you said, and that's part of the training and the professionalism, right? That a lot of times, like I said, people just don't see that, and that's and I love like the fact that like you said, you sat down with your agent today and you're training these things in, you're training in how you handle clients and how you interact with people to make that transaction smooth and make it work. So not only helping this person, actually this agent that you have, grow their business, but you're along the way you're teaching them how they handle it professionally and how they can engage with people, and that goes a long way to working with other agents as well, obviously. And so I think a lot of people, it was interesting. One of our agents here was talking to a potential agent from another place, looking that they're maybe coming to exit, and they're new. And so they were like, well, what's really the differences between brokerages, right? And this is agent to agent, and she kind of gave me a rundown of it. And she said, well, I told him, it really comes down to what's important to you. Some places, are heavier on training. Some places aren't. Some places are heavier on meetings. Some places aren't. Some places are heavier on splits. Some places are this. Some places are a la carte. Some places you do it all yourself, right? And it was very interesting because the agent being new said, well, obviously training's important to me. And they said, but how do I find out about training? Right. Because a lot of people talk about training, and I think that's interesting. So of course, whenever they asked that, and she did the same thing, she goes, well, come to our weekly meeting on Wednesday. You'll see what we do. And so it's interesting because there's so many brokerages out there or agencies out there that don't train. And I think it's not just training paperwork. And a lot of people think of training as like, well, show me how to fill out a form, right?
Right.
That's what we're trained. That's called filling out the form. That's not that. That's not training. Training is having conversations like you and I have about how do we interact with people? How do we interact with both clients, agents, lenders, title, escrow, attorneys, trust, different family members, whatever it may be. How do you do that and do it in a way that's seamless and in a way that makes the transaction smooth for everybody involved and gets you ultimately to the end goal, which is obviously seller wants to sell or buyer wants to buy. How do we help them? How do we help them accomplish all their goals, right? And it is funny because um, there is so much training that goes into that and being able to handle so many moving parts and multiple parts. And especially if you've got 3, 4, 5 deals going on at one time,
Right.
you have to be exceptionally well organized to be able to handle all that. So I think it's cool, man. I think it's cool that you did that training and that that you look to take care of your agents that way. Cause I think a lot of brokers don't always take that hands-on approach.
Right. No, and one thing I appreciate, I know from your story, this agent invited an agent from an outside brokerage into your office for training.
Hmm.
And I know that's not the first time that's happened in your office. And I know that you also led that charge in speaking with other agents saying, hey, come get a firsthand experience of what our training looks like. And
Yep.
if I remember right, you had an agent that's joined that walked away saying, I learned more in that one meeting, what about an
Yeah.
hour and a half maybe meeting,
Yeah.
than they learned at their entire brokerage. And so I know that's your goal, and that's certainly my goal is to every single time my agent walks out that front door, that they came with another
Yeah.
tool in their belt, some more additional basically knowledge to be able to put to use to protect not only themselves but also their clients, because I don't think folks understand that we agents, we have to protect ourselves. And in protecting ourselves within the deal, also extends to either the seller and or buyer. Everything that we do is a purpose to help further either education, educating our clients about the process, or
Yeah.
getting them through that process with the minimal amount of risk as possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's the important part of it. Well,
right.
I think what's kind of cool is we do cover a lot of bases here, and I
You
wanted to say
did.
I think one of our next guests that we're going to have is going to be in the lending world. I
Oh,
know
great.
there's a lot of questions around lending, and I think it'll be fun for them to kind of dive in and explain why pre-approvals are important. It's not just we're not just being greedy realtors like, are you pre-approved? There's a reason that we actually want to know, can you afford to buy a house and all that. So I think that's going to be exciting and people can look forward to that. You know, um, like I said, we covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of
You
ground
did.
today. So
And
any
the
parting thoughts that you might have?
any parting
I know
thought,
you have a lot of thoughts, but any parting thoughts?
something that can be shared to the general public is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, no. So, first off, I just appreciate anyone taking the time to listen to us and to watch these episodes. It means the world to us. We're not
Mhm.
doing this just for our own edification. Uh, Anyone who knows me knows I love to talk, but I also don't like to talk just to hear myself talk, right?
Right.
So we're hoping that we're providing some value to you listeners. And drop a comment below of what you appreciate, what we can change, what we can do better, topics that you want to discuss as well. If you want to talk to either one of us, whether you're in Washington or down here in the Valley in the Phoenix metro area, we'd love to talk to you in regards to what we can do to help, with your career. And I just sent a video out yesterday, and I mean this is, we were talking about accountability recently, and if you don't have someone that's accountable, I'm sure if you're up in Washington, Steve would be more than happy to help you.
Mhm.
Down here in
Yeah.
the Valley, I'm more than happy to help you, and no strings attached, right?
Right.
So,
Yep.
we've both been in the industry for a while, and we both understand that we need to give back. And so
Yeah.
take that from a giving back perspective. So take that away from me. I know Steve's the
Oh yeah,
same
100%. And I,
mindset.
I agree with you 100%. Like I said, we have our weekly meetings. They're open to anybody in any industry and anybody that wants to show up if they're curious about what goes on behind the scenes of the real estate company. I'm like, come on in. Let me show you actually what we are doing. Because one, like you said, it's part of the community thing. But I do want people to understand the work that we're putting in. I do want people to see the analysis that we do. I do want people to see how we look at the industry, how we take a broad perspective and a microscope to it as well for our local area. And I think that's great. So yeah, I'm fully transparent, wide open, always happy to cross collaborate with anybody that's looking to do that. And I know just like you are, and yeah, I think that's cool. It's a fun part of what we get to do. We get a little bit of latitude to do some of those things. So
It is. It
right
is.
on. Well, cool.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching. There again, please like, share, and follow. Drop a comment on what you'd like to hear. Otherwise, we'll catch up with you this time next week.
Sounds good.
All
Awesome.
right. Take care, guys.